Hello, this is a sort of mournful, sorrowful edition of the Borne Report. I'm going to be putting out a tribute to Mr. Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a great American and certainly did not deserve what happened, to his family. I can only imagine what you're going through and to be gunned down because, you have an opinion and you're pushing forth a point of view that some days I didn't even agree with some of it. I don't think that we need to have more kids. I don't think we need to have, because AI, you got AI on one side, you got an illegal immigrant on the other. I don't know how I'm going to employ them in 20 years. What do we do better than robots? There's already enough jobless. Don't, you know, create a situation where, kids are in school and what are they supposed to be learning? I mean, computers code themselves now. If anything, I'd have a child tax. But other than that, I don't think the man was full of hate. I think the man was full of great ideas for the most part, highly religious ones. They were shaped by his Christianity and Judeo-Christian values. And certainly, he will be missed, and not on just the political arena and this thought-provoking way he, was able to start a conversation about, hey, you know what, we just take for granted what's just, and we just take for granted that the teacher's always right. And I don't think that these universities, these very liberal places, these little, uh, communist nurseries, that they become, are good for our children. And I think there's a different set of American values that's being lost. And I mean, very few, if anybody did it as well as Charlie, and especially at such a young age. I mean, he's 31 years old. I'm 40. So, just to be gunned down at that age, doing the right thing, not advocating violence, but having a conversation about politics, and this is why, with due respect, I hope they take seriously the bid from Tamerlane, Texas, the logistics of war, where we would essentially put these giant plexiglass shields up, have vets carry them to the stage, and they would click or interlock, and they would be made up of the same stuff that the Pope Mobile's made up of, and so you could have politicians having town halls again, and you could have, people like Charlie Kirk not getting shot. And it's, I know we always want to be as connected to our audience as possible, but, once again, this type of, horrible, decision, brings back a chance for innovation so that we can get back to, what Charlie wanted was, having a conversation and having politicians and having people like himself feel safe enough to, have a family and know that you're going to live long enough to raise it. And, that would it would create American jobs. It'd put a lot of vets to work, and hopefully the government takes that bid seriously. And, if they go with a bigger company, I mean, I can live with that. I just want our, Charlie Kirk's protected. I want our, politicians protected, left or right. It doesn't really matter, and, that brings up, our bid to be NATO's executioner again. Is what are we going to do with the guy that killed him? I know Charlie would want 7 people to live. Lethal injection just poisons organs, and there are more than 100 people living needing organs. I tell you right now, if Charlie could save 3 people, he would, and he would have given his life to do it. He gave his life. Why would we let that body be poisoned when it could heal 3 to 7 people, probably more than that, um, drastically improve their lives, and so life extension and redemption services, would take that contract and, whatever the jury decided that we do, but there's no reason that you poison the organs. That's just madness. And it costs a fortune, and it's, people that don't believe in the death penalty would just come out against it. Whereas I clearly think the man that shot Charlie Kirk deserves a death penalty, but let's let him make peace with his God by, hopefully volunteering his body to saving others, and see what kind of coward he is when he chooses not to, and then exhausts his appeals. And, I'll if we're up and running, I'll make sure that some good comes out of this horrible, 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 god awful assassination of a young man that could have been president. I mean, let's think realistically. Could Charlie Kirk have been president? Absolutely. Could he have been a great governor? Phenomenal governor. Could he have been a senator? Hell yeah. I can see Mayor Charlie Kirk. I can see Governor Charlie Kirk. I can see Charlie Kirk running for president and winning, one day, in his 50s, 60s. Who knows? I can see Senator Kirk right now. And that's all gone, so we got to find a way to make something good out of this bad. And hopefully, we have 13 to 17 Charlie Kirks dying every day needing an organ. And so hopefully, after this documentary, they take our bid seriously and they put Nato's executioner back to work. It's not about hurting other people. It's about not poisoning the organs and saving lives that can be saved. And then from there, we make enough money to place reclamation specialists with, major fire departments and EMT services that are, in cities where there are a lot of accidents, and you expand the program from there. And hopefully, there isn't the inefficiency moving forward and we save a lot of lives because there's body donors out there and organ donors out there. And, those bodies are rarely claimed in time. And, I could fix a lot of this problem, and, now it's who's going to step into the role of being Charlie Kirk. I don't think one person can do it. I think it's going to be a lot of different voices, hopefully some young voices, hopefully some women. And, I think I'm going to do my part, at least try to do it like Charlie did. I don't know if anybody can do it as well. I mean, what a phenom by 31. Beautiful family, good kids, just absolute tragedy. So my heart goes out to the victims, and I hope that didn't seem self-serving. I just, I think 13 to 17 people die every day and need an organ, and there's a man that's going to be put to death that could save almost that many people just by himself. And I don't think there's any doubt that this is the guy who did it. So why let him sit on death row for 25 years, costing the taxpayer 120 grand a year or more in some cases, when we know what the punishment should be? And, everybody finds Jeebus or whoever in jail. This is a redemption that works for everybody. And, it's a shame that we don't do it in this country because we're afraid of having conversations about common sense. If you need an organ, you would want it. And if Charlie was alive, he'd want you to have it. I think it's madness that we're going to give this guy the lethal injection or put him in an electric chair and fry them. It's like, we could put him to sleep, and or I could blow his fucking brains out, either way, he wouldn't feel a thing, and those organs are available. I honestly think we need to study this one's brain and figure out what possessed you to shoot Charlie fucking Kirk. I mean, what is wrong with you? It's the man will talk to you. It's not like the man's unapproachable. If you disagree with him, get up there and argue with him. He will he'll stay longer. He'll stay extra time to argue with you. If you're dedicated enough to kill him, go up there and beat him in an argument. Why kill him and not give him an opportunity to speak for himself? And he certainly would have given you an opportunity to speak. What message did you send with that assassination? That, liberals with no ideas, need to lash out in violent ways. Obviously we've got, neo-Nazis and problems in this country, but the left is creating these commies too. These anti-American commie sympathizer pieces of garbage that are attacking reasonable characters on the right. And once again, my heart just goes out to all of his fans and his beautiful family. And rest in peace, Charlie. We're going to get to work trying to keep that legacy going. And thank you for the years that you gave us. 24/7, 365, you're trying to make this country better. You know, even on days that you upset people, you gave them an opportunity to present their point of view. You presented your point of view, and, you know, you were a master debater. You weren't a threat to anybody. Certainly the world's an emptier place without you. This is Jason Bennett, and let's win it. And we're going to win this thing for Charlie. We're going to make this country a better place and a safer place for all politicians and all speakers like Charlie. I believe the government will at least look at that bid, and we'll be able to put some widows to work. We'll put some vets to work. We'll reduce veteran suicides, because the dignity of work is really all that we're looking for. The International Brotherhood of American War Veterans needs to exist, and if we could have just gotten to Charlie, he probably would have got this across the goal line in a week. What a good man, a good young man, you know. And he was developing into the person that he was going to be at 31. You know, his ideas are going to change over time. He's not an unreasonable 31-year-old kid, even on some of the things that you don't agree with him. But what happened was just despicable, and it has no place in our nation. It has no place in our politics. Once again, you know, my heart bleeds for his wife and his family and the kids that'll never, you know, have the joy of knowing their dad, really knowing him. I know when I lost mine, it was a devastating day. We'll get off here and stop rambling. It's a sad time. You know, it took me a minute to really kind of address this, because Charlie's such a good person. And, you know, what do you say? You know, you don't want to come off callous. You don't want to come off ignorant. You don't want to come off not caring, but you sort of, you know, want some closure. They finally did catch the guy, allegedly, and so we'll see. But, you know, and shout out to Cash Patel. I think you're doing a great job. I think everybody's just giving you hell. It's like, what do you want, man? He wants to catch the correct guy. He's not out there trying to do a victory lap. He's trying to make sure that the guy gets caught. All he can do is react to a horrible situation. So thank you, Director Patel. I think you're doing a very good job, as well as you, Tulsi, as well as you, Secretary Noam. You know, I don't think the Homeland is lacking in security. I think that our bid should be looked at, and, you know, I think literally we could have bulletproof shields carried by vets, you know, from the limo all the way to the stage. That way, you know, you don't have sort of like a Praetorian tortoise formation, you know, in ancient Rome. Essentially, just big guy just has a shield, you know, says Tamerlane text on the side of it, but it's a Pope Mobile level thickness, or you can't be assassinated. And we would just, you know, probably have 2 vets, maybe 3 on each side, and you would walk in the middle with your little entourage, and we could do that, you know, 2 or 3 shields deep, 2 or 3 shields wide. I mean, whatever type of high-powered rifle that you're worried about, well, we can stop anything, you know, with enough of those shields. So, you know, we could literally put 3 deep and then 3 long. That'd put a lot of vets to work. And, you know, I think the president's worth saving. You know, I think the vice president's worth saving. You know, I think people like Charlie Kirk are worth saving. And, you know, you have security out there standing around doing nothing. These guys would be, you know, securing something that can't be secured, which is carrying a big giant plexiglass shield that's made of something much harder than plexiglass. But, you know, and then the stage, you know, we could just, you know, snap them together. And then, you know, just like they set up a concert stage or something like that, you know, Tamerlane or Texas would do that. Just set up the safety. So, you know, we got to do something now that the war's over. You know, you hate to use a tragedy like this as a shameless plug, but the last thing I want is for this to happen to somebody else. You know, we need to start taking shooters seriously and the threat of shooters seriously. I mean, how many times does the president need to get shot at? And now Charlie Kirk's dead before we say, okay, look, this is good investment. Let's do that. You know, they do it for the fucking Pope. Why the fuck don't they do it for our politicians? You know, why not Charlie Kirk? You know, I mean, you can't tell me that this was the first time he ever received a death threat. If he did I note just some peace, Charlie.